Hello everyone, I'm Laura Cook with Keller Williams Realty, and I'm here answering your real estate questions all about New York City and purchasing. So the question I've been getting a lot this week is, what is the difference between condos and co-ops? Well, that's a really great question, so we're going to break it down for you right here. The main difference between a condo and a co-op really comes down to how ownership is structured. For example, when you buy a condo, it's much like buying a single family home. So at the end of that process, you get a deed and the property is yours. When you're buying in a co-op, you're actually buying shares of a corporation. One of the benefits of being a shareholder is that you get a property at the end when you close. So one thing I want you to be aware of in terms of the main difference between these kind of properties is the fact that once you own a condo or a co-op, you have a lot more power to control what goes on in your condo versus what goes on in the co-op. For example, if you're thinking that you want to sublet the apartment, you're much better purchasing a condo than a co-op. Most co-ops have pretty strict sublet policies. For example, the majority of them you'll find you have to live in the apartment for 2 years and then you can sublet for 3, or things like that. So if your ultimate goal is to own a property that's a little bit more of an investment than someplace you're going to live long term, I highly, highly recommend thinking about a condo over a co-op. So for those of you who are thinking about these two types of properties, be aware that the purchase process feels quite different. So for a co-op, you're putting together a very large board package, and if you're working with a real estate professional, they'll help you with that. Keep in mind that after that process, assuming the managing agent takes that and it looks good, then you have a board interview. Now, the board interview can ask you all kinds of questions about, life in the apartment, your financials, and it's very helpful to be prepared for that kind of an interview. And whenever I'm working with a buyer, I make sure that they understand the kind of questions that could be asked of them. Now, with a condo, it's a lot easier. You're submitting a much simpler package. You most likely won't have to go through an interview process, and the approval process tends to be quicker. So you can cut down on the time of close in terms of your closing timeline significantly if you're thinking about doing a condo versus a co-op. However, keep in mind the closing costs for a co-op are a lot less than for a condo. You can check out that information in my blog below. In general, if you've been researching, you can expect to see that condos are about 20% more expensive than co-ops. This mainly has to do with the fact that you do get more agency over the property, they're more desirable, and at the end of the day, they might be slightly larger and newer. However, if you see, for example, on the Upper West Side, the majority of the properties in certain neighborhoods are co-ops. So if you're really thinking about a specific neighborhood, reach out to your local real estate professional and ask them how many co-ops are in that neighborhood and how many condos are in that neighborhood. And if you need to be in a specific type of property for some reason, make sure that they're aware of that.